Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really getting into something quite profound. We've gathered our sources to unpack the core wisdom of Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now. It's a book that's caused a huge stir, hasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And rightly so. It's not just, philosophy for the bookshelf. It's presented as a very practical guide.
A blueprint, almost,
Mhm.
for escaping that sort of constant mental chatter and psychological suffering.
Exactly. And our mission today really is to offer a kind of shortcut to understanding Tolle's main message. For listeners familiar with this area, we're aiming to decode that universal truth he talks about.
Which isn't tied to a specific religion or anything complex.
No, that's the point. It's about simple, direct practices. The whole idea, the really revolutionary bit, is that there's a way out of that inner turmoil. And it involves, crucially, disidentifying from the thinking mind, and that, while that false self, it constructs the ego.
Right. So we're going deep into why we suffer, psychologically speaking, and maybe more importantly, what Tolle calls the signposts. The ways to actually find that inner stillness, that peace, that isn't dependent on, everything going right externally.
Precisely, finding the peace that's already there, underneath the noise.
Okay, so let's start where Tolle starts with the mind itself, the voice in the head. That seems like the logical entry point. Tolle's whole teaching really springs from his own personal crisis, doesn't it? He wasn't always this beacon of calm.
Not at all. He talks about living in almost constant anxiety, deep depression, right up until he was 29, just completely consumed by his own thoughts.
And the turning point was this one night of unbearable dread leading to a single thought.
Yeah, the thought, I cannot live with myself any longer, just popped into his mind.
Which sounds like, well, the end of the road.
Yeah,
But something shifted for him.
something profound. Because he looked at that thought, I cannot live with myself. And suddenly, he saw the split. Wait a minute. If I cannot live with myself, then there must be two of me here. The I and the self that the I finds intolerable.
Ah, so which one is real?
Exactly. Who is the I and who is the self? The implication hit him. Maybe only one of them is actually real. And that question, that sudden insight was so powerful, so against everything he'd ever assumed.
That his mind just stopped.
Completely stopped.
Oh.
The thinking mechanism just switched off. And in that silence, that sudden gap,
He found peace.
months of it apparently, uninterrupted deep peace and bliss, just fell into it when the thinking ceased.
Wow. And that personal experience becomes the foundation for understanding the core problem for, well, pretty much everyone.
Yes. He identifies the root issue as this relentless, usually completely unconscious identification with the mind.
Meaning we think we are our thoughts.
We think we are the thinker. We're completely absorbed in that stream of mental noise, the internal commentary, the arguments, the worries. And when consciousness is totally entangled in that, you're cut off from the deeper stillness, the sense of being.
And this entanglement creates the ego.
It creates a false mind-made sense of self. That's the ego. It's not real in the way your hand is real. It's a construct.
So forget Freud for a minute. In Tolle's terms, the ego isn't about primal drives necessarily, but it's this phantom identity built from thoughts.
That's a really crucial distinction, yes. Because it's not real, this ego is inherently fragile. It's vulnerable, deeply insecure. It feels perpetually under threat.
Which explains why it's always so busy.
It has to be busy to survive. Its survival depends on constant thinking, constant activity, and it needs to shore itself up by identifying with external things.
Like what? Possessions, jobs?
Possessions, job titles, social status, achievements, grudges, your personal history, your future ambitions, specific beliefs, political ideologies, anything external, really.
So it creates an identity out of my story.
Exactly. It needs the past. This happened to me. This is who I am because of it. And it constantly projects into the future. When I get X, then I'll be happy, fulfilled, safe.
Always chasing something in time, never finding satisfaction now.
Because the now is perceived as deficient or even as a threat to the ego's existence. Peace now doesn't require a story or future projection.
Okay, but hold on. The common pushback here is, we need to think, right? How would we function, solve problems, build bridges?
Of course, absolutely. Tolle is very clear. The mind is an amazing tool. It's an instrument perfect for specific tasks, planning, analyzing, creating.
But
But look at the actual content of most people's thinking. Tolle estimates something like 80 to 90% of it is repetitive, pointless, and often, frankly, negative or harmful.
it was the same worries on loop. The same judgments.
Precisely. It's like running this incredibly powerful computer on a constant useless cycle. Think of the energy drain. It's a massive leakage of vital energy.
So it's not about getting rid of the mind, the tool. It's about breaking the addiction to its constant compulsive running.
You've nailed it. The compulsion is there because we mistakenly derive our entire sense of who we are from the mind's activity and its contents.
The old I think, therefore I am, Descartes.
Tolle points to that as the fundamental error of Western thought, equating thinking with being. Equating your identity with the stream of thoughts, that's what creates the illusion of separateness.
And that illusion of separateness is the source of all the conflict, the problems, the suffering.
In his view, yes, the feeling of being a fragment in a hostile universe.
Okay, so if we're caught in this, if the mind is running us instead of us running the mind, how do we flip the script? What's the first practical thing you can do?
The very first step, and it's the most crucial one, start to realize that you are not the thinker. You are the awareness behind the thinker.
So the space in which the thoughts happen.
Beautifully put, yes. And the core practice that flows from this is watching the thinker.
Which means?
It means consciously listening to that voice in your head, that internal monologue or dialogue that's almost always running. But here's the key. Listen to it impartially.
Without judging the thoughts.
Without judging, without getting involved. Just notice, there's a thought. Observe it as you would observe clouds moving across the sky.
That sounds simple, but it feels incredibly hard. Because the moment I notice a bad thought, my instinct is to judge myself for having it.
And that's the ego sneaking back in through the side door, taking on the role of the judge or the commentator on the thoughts.
Okay, so the goal is pure observation.
Pure, detached witnessing. When you listen like that, impartially, you create a space. You begin to sense yourself not as the thought, but as the presence aware of the thought. A realization starts to dawn from a deeper level than the mind. There is the voice, and here I am, listening to it.
And that I am. It's not a thought.
That I am realization is presence. It's the awakening of consciousness that was previously trapped in the thought. It's accessing a higher dimension of intelligence, you could say.
And what happens to the thought when it's observed like that?
It loses its power over you because you're no longer feeding it energy through identification. It's like unplugging an appliance. The thought might still be there for a bit, but it doesn't run you anymore.
And if the thought dissolves, or there's a gap?
The gaps. Those moments of no mind. When the stream of thinking pauses, even for a second, you experience a discontinuity.
What does that feel like?
Stillness. A deep, profound, inner quiet. Peace. And sometimes, if you pay close attention, there's a subtle sense of aliveness, vibrancy, a quiet joy bubbling up from within.
The joy of being.
That's what Tolle calls it. The simple joy of existence, unburdened by mental stories. And importantly, this isn't some dull, trance-like state. It's the opposite.
You become more alert?
Incredibly alert, intensely present, more alive, actually.
Okay, so watching the thinker starts to loosen the grip of the mind.
Yeah.
But the ego needs fuel, and Tolle says its main fuel source is time.
Yes, this is one of his most radical and sometimes challenging concepts. Time and mind are inseparable. Meaning, if you want to truly free yourself from the mind's dominance, you have to end the delusion of psychological time.
The delusion of time. Wow, okay, unpack that. How is time a delusion? We live by the clock.
He makes a distinction we'll get to. But the core idea is this. Your entire life unfolds only in this present moment. Always. Think about it. Is the past happening now? No. It exists only as memory traces, thoughts, in the now.
Okay, memories are accessed now. Makes sense.
In the future, is it here yet? No. It exists only as anticipation, projection, imagination. Again, thoughts happening now.
So past and future only exist as mental concepts in the present.
Exactly. Nothing ever happened outside the now. Nothing will ever happen outside the now. Life is always only now.
That's simple, but mind-bending. Because we spend nearly all our mental energy not being here.
That's the mind's trick. It convinces us the now is just a stepping stone, something to get through to reach a better future moment, or something flawed because of the past.
So we're constantly overlooking the only time that is actually real.
We're overlooking life itself. The moment you truly grasp this, not just intellectually but feel it, there's a potential shift. A shift from being run by the mind to resting in being. And when that happens, things change. The world seems more alive, more vibrant, because the filter of constant mental interpretation drops away.
You mentioned emergencies earlier. Is that an example of this shift happening spontaneously?
A powerful one, yes. In a sudden life or death crisis, a potential accident, an attack, what happens? The thinking mind often freezes.
Your personal history, your worries about next week, they vanish.
They vanish instantly, and what takes over is this intense, calm, focused presence. Highly alert, but not thinking in the usual way. Actions become swift, intuitive, often incredibly effective.
Which is why some people get addicted to extreme sports, chasing that state.
It's an unconscious seeking of that freedom, yes. Freedom from the burden of the mind, the problems, the story of me. But the point is, you don't need the danger. You can choose to access that presence.
And Tolle argues this isn't a new discovery. He says spiritual teachers throughout history were pointing to the same thing.
He believes so. That the core message often got lost in translation, in ritual, in dogma. But look at the source teachings.
Like Jesus saying, take no thought for the morrow.
Exactly. Or talking about the lilies of the field, just being in the timeless now. Or the Sufi idea, the Fufi is the son of time present.
And Meister Eckhart,
The 13th century mystic, he said, time is what keeps the light from reaching us. There is no greater obstacle to God than time. They're all saying, salvation, enlightenment, liberation, it's not in the future, it's now.
always now. Okay, let's make it super practical. If I want to access this presence, this state of being intensely in the politician, now what are the access points?
Well, the first one we touched on, direct focus, intentionally bringing your full attention into the present moment. This is the essence of most meditation practices, really.
Just focusing on
What?
my breath.
Breath is a classic anchor because it's always happening now. Or you could focus on the sensations in your body, the sounds around you, anything that grounds you right here.
Okay. What else?
The second way, which is maybe even more transformative for daily life, is bringing presence to routine activities.
Like doing the dishes.
Exactly. Or walking up the stairs, brushing your teeth, waiting in line. Instead of being mentally somewhere else, planning, worrying, rehashing, give the activity your full attention. Feel the water on your hands, notice the movement of your feet on the steps, observe your breath while you wait.
So the activity isn't just a means to an end anymore.
It becomes an end in itself, infused with a sense of quality, care, presence. You're not rushing through the moment to get to the next one.
That sounds peaceful, actually. And the third way?
It links back to watching the mind, observing the mind's tendency to escape. Notice how often your mind habitually pulls you out of the now.
Worrying about the future. Regretting the past.
Constantly projecting, anticipating, ruminating. Just become aware of that pattern. And here's the beautiful paradox Tolle highlights.
What's that?
The very moment you realize, oh, I'm not present right now, guess what?
I am present.
Boom, you got it. That realization is the return of awareness. The witnessing consciousness has woken up again. You don't need to fight the mind. Just noticing you were lost brings you back.
Okay, but I still need to plan my week, pay my bills, set goals. How does that work if I'm just supposed to be in the now? Doesn't that contradict using time practically?
Great question. And this is where Tolle makes that crucial distinction between clock time and psychological time.
Okay, what's the difference?
Clock time is the practical dimension of time, using the past to learn from experience, setting goals and working towards them in the future, making appointments, reading a clock.
Necessary stuff for living in the world.
Absolutely necessary. An enlightened person uses clock time efficiently, maybe even more efficiently because they're not bogged down by negativity, but they remain rooted in the now while using clock time.
So what's psychological time?
That's the dysfunctional element. That's the mind's compulsive need to dwell on the past and project into the future as part of your identity.
So carrying past guilt, resentment, bitterness, that's psychological time.
Yes. When the past isn't just a lesson learned, but becomes me and my sad story, what was done to me, my regrets. That's ego identification with psychological past.
And constantly waiting for the future, believing happiness is just around the corner.
That's compulsive projection into psychological future. Always living for the next moment, the next achievement, the next vacation, believing that will be the moment of salvation or fulfillment. It never is, of course.
Because life is only ever now.
Precisely. Waiting is a state of mind that denies the now.
This distinction feels really important because not making it can lead to some terrible outcomes, right? You mentioned collective examples.
Yes, Tolle points to the insanity of psychological time on a mass scale. Think about ideologies like certain forms of communism or fascism that promise a future paradise.
Utopia's coming.
Right. And that belief in a glorious future good is used to justify horrific suffering, oppression, even mass murder in the present. The ends justify the means.
Sacrificing the now for an imagined future.
It's a profound collective mental illness rooted entirely in the denial of the present moment. It shows how turning away from the now can literally be the source of what we call evil.
So, if we boil it down, all the negativity we feel, anxiety, stress, guilt, anger, sadness, resentment, it's all caused by this accumulation of psychological time.
And the accompanying denial of the present moment.
Yeah.
According to Tolle, all suffering beyond basic physical pain needs time. It cannot survive in the now.
Why does the mind resist the now so much?
Because the mind, the ego, needs time to function. Its identity is built on the past, and its survival depends on projecting into the future. The timeless now feels like annihilation to the ego.
Because if there's no past story and no future worry, what's left for the ego to do?
Exactly. It starts to dissolve, which is why being present is the ultimate liberation from suffering. It cuts the root.
Okay, so we're learning to watch the mind, stay present. But what about all the old stuff? The emotional baggage we carry? The deep wounds from the past? Tolle has a specific term for this, doesn't he?
He does. He calls it the pain body. It's a really insightful concept.
What exactly is the pain body?
It's essentially a buildup, an accumulation of old residual emotional pain from your entire life, and potentially even collective pain that hasn't been fully faced, accepted, and transmuted. It forms a kind of negative energy field that lodges itself in your body and mind, almost like a semi-autonomous entity living within you.
Like an emotional parasite.
That's a good way to think of it. It has two modes, dormant and active. Most of the time, it might be dormant, but then something triggers it.
What kind of triggers?
Oh, anything that resonates with an old pain pattern. A casual remark, a specific situation, a memory, even someone else's pain body can activate yours.
And when it becomes active?
When it activates, its primary goal is survival. And it survives by getting you to unconsciously identify with it. It needs to take you over, to become you temporarily.
So you suddenly feel overwhelmed by anger or sadness or victimhood.
Exactly. You become the anger, the grief, the resentment. You speak and act from that place. And the pain body feeds on that negative energy.
It needs more pain to sustain itself. It thrives on drama.
Absolutely. It loves drama, conflict, negativity, anger, hatred, grief, self-pity, violence. That's its food. Tolle makes the striking point that it finds joy, love, and peace quite indigestible.
Wow. It literally cannot feed on positivity.
No,
Yeah.
it needs the energy of suffering.
Okay, so if it feeds on unconscious identification and negativity, the way to dissolve it must be
Presence, consciousness, awareness.
bringing the light in.
Exactly. The pain body is deeply afraid of the light of your consciousness. It can only operate in the dark, when you're unaware, when you mistake its voice and emotions for your own.
So the practice is to watch it when it arises.
Yes. Don't fight it. Don't try to suppress it. Don't get lost in the story it tells you. He always does this to me. It's not fair. Instead, turn your attention inward. Feel the raw energy of the emotion in your body. Where is it? What does it feel like? Just observe it neutrally as the witness.
Become the watcher of the pain, not the pain itself.
Precisely. The moment you become the witness, the identification is broken. You are no longer unconsciously feeding it.
And it can't replenish itself.
It can't use you anymore. You've withdrawn the fuel source, your identification, and the energy of presence, the power of the femur now, begins to transmute the pain body's energy field.
So observation isn't passive, it's an active transmutation process.
It's the most powerful agent of change. You don't fight darkness with darkness, you bring in the light. Unconsciousness created the pain body. Consciousness dissolves it. Simply watching with acceptance is enough.
You mentioned feeling the emotion in the body. Tolle connects thoughts and emotions very directly, right?
Yeah.
And emotion is the body's response to a thought.
That's his model, yes. An emotion is essentially the body's physical reaction to what the mind is thinking, or to a mental interpretation.
And sometimes the body tells a truer story than the mind.
Often, if there's a conflict, say, your mind is telling you, everything's fine, I'm not upset, but your body feels tense, anxious, knotted. The emotion is reflecting the deeper, perhaps unconscious truth of your mental state.
The thought might be a denial, a lie, but the body doesn't lie.
The body gives you a direct reflection. So a key practice is to shift from analyzing your thoughts, why am I thinking this, to feeling your inner state.
Asking, what's going on inside me right now?
Yes, and then directing your attention inward. Feel the energy of the emotion directly. Don't get caught in mental stories about it. Don't judge it. I shouldn't feel angry. Just feel the raw sensation.
Bringing the unconscious feeling into conscious awareness.
That's the alchemical process. You allow the emotion to be there as energy without letting it dictate your words or actions. You hold it in presence.
This leads to an important distinction Tolle makes between everyday emotions and deeper states of being.
Right. He points out that most things we call emotions operate in pairs. They're part of the mind's duality. Pleasure eventually fades or turns to pain. Excitement becomes boredom. Even conventional love often flips into its opposite, hate or resentment. The Latin root movia means to disturb,
They're inherently unstable.
because they belong to the world of form and duality. But then there are deeper states: love, joy, peace.
And these are different.
Fundamentally different. They are states of being. They don't have an opposite. True peace isn't the opposite of conflict, it's the absence of it, arising from deep within. True joy isn't the opposite of sadness, it's an uncaused sense of aliveness. True love isn't the opposite of hate, it's the recognition of oneness.
Because they arise from beyond the mind.
They arise from your connection with being, with presence. They are aspects of your true nature uncovered when the mind's noise quiets down.
Which explains why chasing happiness through external things is always a losing game. That happiness is conditional, dualistic.
It is. It depends on things going right. True joy is unconditional. It's simply there, as the feeling of being itself.
Understanding this helps tackle the biggest driver of suffering, which Tolle identifies as fear.
Yes. And he makes a very bold claim here. Ultimately, all fear is the ego's fear of death, of annihilation.
All fear. Even, say, fear of spiders or fear of failure. How does that trace back to fear of death?
It's about identification. The ego is the sense of self built on identification with form, your body, your possessions, your thoughts, your roles, your mental positions.
My identity.
Your mind-made identity. If you strongly identify with, say, your reputation as being intelligent or right, then being criticized or proven wrong feels like a threat to your very existence.
Because that mental position is me in that moment.
To the ego, yes. So the compulsive need to be right in an argument, the intense defensiveness when challenged, it's not just about the topic. It's rooted in a primal fear of annihilation of the self-image. The ego thinks, if I'm wrong, I die.
Wow. So when you disidentify from the mind,
Being right or wrong suddenly doesn't matter to your fundamental sense of self, your sense of being. The defensiveness just dissolves because there's nothing to defend. The fear loses its grip.
so all that arguing, defending, attacking, it's actually coming from a place of deep fear and weakness.
It's the ego desperately trying to preserve its illusory self, which brings us back to the core mechanism of suffering. Non-acceptance, resistance.
Resistance to what is.
Yes, resistance on the level of thought manifests as judgment. This shouldn't be happening. This is wrong. Resistance on the level of emotion manifests as negativity, anger, anxiety, despair. It's the ego saying no to the present moment.
Because the ego needs time, past regrets, future hopes to survive. The now is its enemy.
The now is where its power dissolves. Acceptance, surrender to the now, is the end of the ego's game, and therefore the end of suffering.
We talked about the body holding the pain body, the emotional residue. But then Tolle flips it and says the body is actually our most direct doorway out of suffering into something deeper.
He does. It's a beautiful paradox.
Wow.
The key practice here is connecting with what he calls the inner body.
The inner body. What's that distinct from the physical body?
We usually perceive our physical body as just, flesh and bone, a dense, solid form that's ultimately temporary. Tolle calls this the outer shell. But deeper than that, animating it is an invisible energy field, a sense of aliveness, presence, vibration. That's the inner body. It's your connection to the deeper reality of being, experienced within the physical form.
So it's not something separate, but the life within the physical.
Exactly. It's the animating intelligence or consciousness pervading the form. And it's your most immediate access point to the now and to the formless dimension.
So the practice is feeling it, inhabiting the body.
Yes. It means keeping some of your attention, even just a little bit, continuously anchored within that inner energy field throughout your day.
What does that actually feel like? Is it dramatic?
Not usually, no. It can be very subtle. A faint tingling in your hands and feet. A sense of warmth. A general feeling of inner aliveness or vibrancy. Just a quiet knowing that you are in your body.
And maintaining that awareness keeps you present.
It anchors you firmly in the now. It prevents your consciousness from getting totally lost in thought or external drama. You know yourself as the formless presence inside the form.
This feels very different from older spiritual traditions that sometimes saw the body as an obstacle, something to be denied or punished.
Completely different. Tolle emphasizes that spiritual realization doesn't happen by escaping the body, but through it, By bringing consciousness into the inner body, you raise its vibrational frequency.
And that helps dissolve negativity.
Yes, negativity, pain body residue, unconsciousness, they can't survive in the high frequency of conscious presence within the body. It's a powerful transmutation tool.
But what if someone tries this, focuses inward, and just feels awful, like agitation or nausea or just intense discomfort?
That's a very common experience initially, especially if there's a strong pain body. It means that focusing inward is bringing unconscious emotional pain to the surface.
So what do you do then? Stop.
Not necessarily stop the practice, but recognize what's happening. And often, Tolle suggests, this indicates the need for forgiveness.
Forgiveness of others or oneself.
Both. But forgiveness here isn't just a mental act. It means deeply relinquishing grievance, letting go of all inner resistance to what happened in the past or what is happening now. It's releasing the resentment, the blame, the self-pity that keeps the old pain alive.
Clearing the emotional static so you can feel the deeper stillness.
Exactly. He references Jesus saying, before you enter the temple, forgive. The temple is your inner body, your connection to being. You can't truly enter it if you're still clinging to non-forgiveness, which is purely mind stuff. Presence is the key to true forgiveness.
Okay, so the inner body is the primary gateway. Gateway to what? Tolle uses the term the unmanifested. Sounds pretty abstract.
It is abstract for the mind, yes. The unmanifested is his term for the ultimate reality. The formless, timeless, deathless source from which everything arises and to which everything returns.
Like being itself.
Or God.
Synonymous with being, yes? You could call it God essence, the Tao, the void, pure consciousness, the source. It's beyond names and forms. The inner body is where the manifested form touches the unmanifested, formless.
Are there other ways to connect with this unmanifested reality in daily life besides the inner body?
Yes, Tolle offers two other very practical portals that use our external environment, silence and space.
Silence. How is silence a portal?
Think about sound. Any sound, a word, music, noise is born out of silence, exists surrounded by silence, and dissolves back into silence. Silence is primary, sound is secondary. He suggests that silence is the audible aspect of the unmanifested. It's the stillness of the source, making itself perceptible in the world of form.
So the practice is listening to the silence. Yes, not just waiting for sounds to stop, but actively paying attention to the silence itself. The silence underneath the sounds, the gaps between words, the quiet background hum. When you pay deep attention to external silence, you inevitably become still inside. It draws your attention away from mental noise into inner quiet.
Okay, makes sense. And the third portal, space.
Space is the visual or spatial equivalent of silence or inner no-mind. Look around you. Everything exists in space.
Right, objects in a room, planets in the cosmos.
Our normal perception, driven by the ego, focuses exclusively on the things, the forms. We overlook the space in which they exist. But space isn't just emptiness, it's the potentiality from which all form arises.
Like physicists saying atoms are mostly empty space.
Exactly. The essence of matter is emptiness. The Heart Sutra says, form is emptiness, emptiness is form. So the practice is to consciously shift your attention. Withdraw some attention from the objects, the forms, and become aware of the space around them, the space between them, the space in the room, the sky.
And that awareness of outer space connects you to inner space.
It naturally pulls you into an awareness of inner spaciousness, which is the stillness and vastness of your own consciousness, free from thought forms.
So outer silence points to inner stillness.
Yeah.
Outer space points to inner space.
Beautifully summarized. They are two facets of the nothingness, which is the ground of all being, the source of everything. Realizing this connects you to the infinite, deathless dimension within yourself.
There's one more portal mentioned, a very intense one. Conscious death.
Yes. Physical death is the ultimate dissolution of form. At the moment of death, the identification with the body, mind, and world is forcibly stripped away. Tolle suggests that the doorway to the unmanifested opens wide at that point. It's a final, immense opportunity for spiritual realization, for liberation.
But most people miss it.
Tragically, yes. Because if you spent your whole life identified with form, clinging to the ego, resisting the form, then at the moment of death, there's likely too much fear, too much resistance. You lack the conscious presence needed to recognize the nature of reality as the formless dissolves. Texts like the Tibetan Book of the Dead speak of recognizing the luminous splendor of the colorless light of emptiness.
So cultivating presence now is preparation for that ultimate transition.
It is. By learning to connect with the formless dimension during life through the inner body, silence, space, you prepare yourself to meet death consciously, recognizing it not as an end, but as a return to source, realizing your own immortal essence.
Okay, let's bring this down to earth a bit. Relationships, especially intimate ones. They're often ground zero for ego battles and emotional drama, aren't they? How do Tully's ideas apply here?
Oh, hugely. He argues that most relationships in the unenlightened state are what he terms addictive relationships,
Addictive.
meaning they aren't based on true love, which he says has no opposite, but on egoic needs and attachments. They tend to swing dramatically between intense love, often really egoic attachment and neediness, and intense conflict, anger, emotional withdrawal, the hate side of the duality.
Why addictive, though? What's the hook?
It stems from the ego's fundamental feeling of incompleteness, of lack. That sense of separation we talked about. There's a deep, often unconscious longing to return to wholeness, to end duality. The ego mistakenly tries to find this wholeness outside itself through a relationship. It projects the need for salvation onto the partner. You complete me.
Hoping the other person will fill that inner void.
Exactly. But no human can possibly meet the ego's insatiable demands for validation, security, and unconditional positive regard forever. It's an impossible burden.
So when the partner inevitably fails to be the perfect savior,
The underlying fear, pain, and lack within the ego resurface with a vengeance. And because the ego can't take responsibility, it projects this pain outwards.
blame, criticism, resentment, attack,
Hmm.
directed at the partner.
That's the cycle. The person you loved moments ago becomes the perceived source of your pain. People confuse this intense egoic clinging and the subsequent drama with the depth of love. It's really the depth of the addiction.
So how does a relationship become enlightened, or at least less dysfunctional? What breaks the cycle?
Presence. Disidentification from the ego and the pain body. True love, Tolle says, can only blossom when that happens. But the greatest single catalyst for change within a relationship is complete acceptance.
Accepting the partner exactly as they are, warts and all.
Exactly as they are in this moment, without the constant nagging need to judge them, change them, fix them according to your ego's preferences.
That sounds incredibly difficult.
It is difficult for the ego because the ego thrives on judging and wanting to control. But the moment you offer genuine acceptance, you step out of the egoic mind pattern. You're no longer playing the mind games. The drama stops. That acceptance creates a space for something real to emerge.
So the relationship itself becomes a spiritual practice.
Potentially one of the most powerful ones, because your partner will inevitably trigger your unconscious patterns and vice versa. The key is, consciousness has to start with you. You can't force your partner to become present.
So if I stay present, non-reactive, accepting, what happens?
Your presence acts like a mirror. It challenges the partner's unconsciousness simply by being there. If they are ready, if there's enough consciousness awakening in them too, they might join you in that state of presence. The relationship deepens.
And if they're not ready, if they stay stuck in reactivity?
Then the gap in consciousness might become too wide and you may naturally grow apart. But Tully suggests, if you are truly present, you can separate and love without the usual egoic drama of blame and resentment.
Interesting. Tolle also points to a specific challenge, particularly for women, related to the pain body, even while suggesting women might be naturally closer to being.
Yes, it's a nuanced point. He observes that women, perhaps due to their biology and greater attunement to the body, might generally be closer to the inner body, to being, more open to the spiritual dimension.
But the obstacle.
The major obstacle for many women is often the collective female pain body. This carries not just personal pain, but the accumulated residue of millennia of suffering endured by women collectively.
Things like subjugation, male dominance, childbirth pain, loss.
Exactly. Generations of suppressed anger, grief, and powerlessness stored in the collective female psyche, which can manifest intensely in individual women.
And he suggests a specific time for working with this.
He points to the time around the menstrual cycle as a period when this collective pain body often becomes particularly active, potentially causing intense emotional and physical discomfort.
So rather than just enduring it or being swept away by it.
Use it as a powerful opportunity for spiritual practice. The key is to be incredibly present and alert before the wave of emotion fully takes over. Watch it arise, feel the intense energy charge in the body, but resist the urge to identify with the story. I'm a victim, life is unfair, men are.
Just be the witness to the energy.
Be the witnessing presence. By doing so, you don't feed the pain body. Instead, that immense energy, which would normally fuel suffering, gets transmuted directly into consciousness. It's a way of freeing yourself and contributing to healing the collective.
This all seems to come back to a core attitude, which Tolle calls surrender. What does he really mean by that? It sounds passive.
It's often misunderstood that way, yes, like giving up, resignation, apathy. But true surrender, in Tolle's context, is the opposite of passive. It's an active, courageous wisdom. It means yielding to the flow of life, rather than resisting it. It means saying yes internally to whatever the present moment contains, unconditional acceptance of what is.
Even if what is unpleasant or difficult.
Especially then. Surrender means relinquishing the inner resistance, the mental judgment and emotional negativity that creates suffering about what is. It's accepting the reality of this moment because it's already here. Fighting reality is insane.
But if I just accept a bad situation, won't I lose my motivation to change it? Won't I just become complacent?
That's the fear, but Tolle argues the opposite is true. Acting from a place of resistance, anger, or negativity actually creates more negativity and resistance in the world. It's often ineffective or creates new problems. True, positive, intelligent action arises most powerfully from a place of acceptance of the now.
So the sequence is crucial. Accept first, then act.
Yes. First, surrender internally to the isness of this moment. Accept it fully. Then, from that place of clarity and non-resistance, ask, what action is required or possible now? And focus only on that one step you can take right now.
And if inner factors like fear or apathy are stopping me?
Surrender applies there too. Accept that fear is present now. Shine the light of awareness on it without resistance. Often that simple acceptance dissolves the blockage, freeing you to act.
And this path, watching the mind, presence, acceptance, surrender, it leads to.
The ultimate state, you could say, the joy of being.
Which, as you said, is different from regular happiness.
Completely different. Regular happiness is caused by external events or circumstances. I'm happy because I got a promotion. It's conditional and therefore temporary. The joy of being is uncaused.
Yeah. It just arises from within.
It arises from your connection to being, to presence. It's a deep, vibrant sense of peace, aliveness, and okayness that isn't dependent on anything external. Tolle often calls it the peace of God.
So it's not subject to the ups and downs of life.
No, because it's not part of that dualistic cycle of gain-loss, good-bad. If you seek fulfillment only in external things, you're doomed to the cycle of pleasure and pain. But when you find the joy of being within,
You realize that even if everything external collapsed, that core peace remains untouched.
that's the ultimate freedom. Knowing that the source of true joy is within you, always available, right now.
So we've really covered a lot of ground, from getting lost in the mind's noise, the ego's stories, to the practice of just watching that thinker.
Creating that space.
And learning to anchor ourselves in the body. Now, through the inner body, through acceptance, it keeps coming back to that central point, doesn't it? Liberation from suffering isn't a future goal. It's only ever available.
Right now, this moment is the only point of access. Always.
And when someone becomes fully established in this state, fully conscious, what changes fundamentally?
The sense of duality starts to heal. Tolle says you reach a point where you no longer have a relationship with yourself.
Meaning the I and the self that were in conflict.
They merge. The thinking I that judges or worries and the perceived myself that feels deficient or needs defending that split dissolves into one unified field of awareness.
There's no separate self left to protect or feel bad about.
Exactly. The whole defensive structure of the ego becomes redundant. You realize your true nature is that awareness itself, which is inherently whole, complete, and fearless. That's accessing the deathless dimension of being.
Realizing, as you said, that nothing real can be threatened.
Because what's real is formless, timeless awareness. Form changes, but awareness remains.
Which brings us to a final, maybe quite provocative thought for you, the listener, to chew on as you leave this deep dive. Tolle takes this idea to its ultimate conclusion, suggesting that even the physical body and the experience we call death, they are part of the same grand illusion.
An illusion created by the egoic mind's identification with form and its inherent fear of ending. To perceive yourself primarily as a vulnerable, separate physical body destined to decay and die, that, he says, is the core misperception.
Wow. That's a huge statement.
It is. But here's the paradox again. Even though the body is part of the illusion of form, it remains our only point of access through that illusion to the reality it conceals.
So we don't reject the body, we go deeper into it, into the inner body.
Yes. We need to shift our perception. He uses the analogy of mistaking a precious jewel for a common stone, or perhaps seeing only a stone statue where an angel resides. We're misperceiving our own true nature.
We need to look through the form to the formless presence within.
And realize that what is truly real, that divine, deathless presence that you are, can never, ever be threatened by changes in form, including death.
And that deep realization.
That realization is enlightenment. It breaks the whole karmic cycle of suffering, compulsive reactivity, and fear that's driven by the illusion of being merely a separate mortal form. It's the ultimate homecoming.